Hey everybody, welcome to this great Photoshop CS6 tutorial on how to improve the performance of Photoshop on your computer. I'm your host, Buddy Blackford, and let's get started. So we're going to come up here into the preferences. So let's go to Edit and then Preferences, and then we'll come down to Performance. And this is where we can start assigning different performance tasks. So the first thing I want to go over with you is this scratch discs down here. Now, when Photoshop is working on something with a lot of stuff it needs to process, it will use your RAM first. But after the RAM runs out, then it'll use these scratch discs to distribute the workload and perform an operation. So it'll use free space on any available drive. So any of the available drives you have are called scratch disks that they will use. So it's best to divide the workload. So I'm going to go ahead and check my external hard drive here and use that as a scratch disk. By assigning multiple scratch disk drives, you increase Photoshop's overall performance. The next section I want to go over is this memory usage section here. And the more RAM you allocate to Photoshop, the more efficiently it's going to run. And for a basic guideline, Photoshop is going to require about 5 or 6 times the working size of 5 or 6 times the amount of RAM of the working size of your document. And working size of a document is when you have all the layers in there and you keep on adding more layers. Once you add another layer, it's going to increase the size of your document, and that's the working size. So it's good to have as much RAM as you can allocate, but make sure you leave a little bit for other programs. If you're using like 2 programs at once, like if you're going to use like After Effects and Photoshop at the same time, then you may want to lower the allocation or lower the available RAM for Photoshop and up the available RAM for After Effects. Depends on how you're using it. So if you're using Photoshop alone, leave at least 2 gigs of RAM for the outside programs. So I'm going to up this here to almost 12 gigs. Because I have 14.6 gigabytes available, so I'm gonna go to 82% here, and that's gonna be good for me on the memory usage here. Now we've got our history and cache here. There are presets here for documents that are certain sizes, so like a tall and thin document, and like something that's tall, like really tall and not very wide. Then you got like default, and then you got something that's big and flat, which is like, I don't know, like if you're working on like a billboard or something like that. So that's what that is. Your history states are the amount of undos you can have. You can have up to 1,000 undos, but I mean, no one would ever really need that, so you don't have to worry about going to 1,000, I would hope. But when you increase the number of history states or undos, it increases the amount of RAM Photoshop uses to manage your history. So if you lower the amount of history states, then it'll increase the performance you have, but you have to sacrifice the amount of undos you can make. So it's like a, I can't remember the term, but it's like either like a win-lose kind of thing, I guess. So you gotta manage that the way that you work on your own. If you make a lot of mistakes, you might want to increase the history states, so that's up to you. So the cache levels here are screen redraws, and if you hover over top of like the cache levels here, down at the bottom of the preferences there's a description, and I'll read it to you real quick. Number of cache levels of image data used to improve screen redraw and histogram speed. Choose more cache level for bigger documents with few layers. Choose fewer cache levels for smaller documents with many layers. Changes will take effect the next time you start Photoshop. So when you're working on large documents, more cache levels help you speed up the function and make image manipulation proceed faster. But they work within your RAM. So the more cache levels you choose, the less RAM that you'll have available for other Photoshop functions. So pretty much use that it's kind of like the trade-off with the history states. So depends on what you're working on. You can change that for each like project that you're working on. Now we've got the cache tile size, and that's the amount of data Photoshop stores or processes at once. So use a large tile size for large documents to speed up processing. If you're not sure what to use, just use one of these buttons up here. So default is good, and then you've got up to 1028K, so that's what I use just to it says set cache levels to 2 or higher for optimum GPU performance. It'll give you a little information bar there for use based upon your graphics card and stuff like that. We've got our graphics processor settings here. It'll tell you what graphics card you have here, and then you can use the graphics processor here for helping like speed things up, which is pretty nice. And if we go into the advanced settings, we've got our drawing mode here. We can check to use the graphics processor to accelerate computation. So if you have a good graphics card, it can help out a lot. Even like not even a good graphics card can help out too. OpenCL and anti-alias, you want to have those checked to get the most out of like your graphics card. And when you have this on advanced, it uses your graphics card to the fullest extent it can. Normal is like in the middle, and basic is like the least amount. So it says if this mode seems to perform less smoothly, try switching to normal or basic mode. So if you're getting like your Photoshop is like freezing up or anything like that, lower this down to like normal. So that's it for increasing your performance in Photoshop. I hope you guys learned how to use this correctly and start like making some really cool stuff in Photoshop really quickly now. So I'll see you guys later in the next tutorial. Thumbs up if you like this, and subscribe if you want to see more Photoshop CS6 tutorials in the future. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good day.